let's go ahead and get started. We have a slight modification to the program. I didn't realize General Burkhardt is going to address us through a video message, and then we'll get started on the panel. So I apologize that we're a couple of minutes late. In the Bundeswehr, the German Bundeswehr, they say, 5 Minuten vor der Zeit ist der Soldatens Pünktlichkeit, meaning unless you're at least 5 minutes early, you're not on time. So, and then they say, 5 Minuten später kommt der Sanitäter. So I apologize that we're starting a couple of minutes late, but it'll be worth the wait as is. So, George, you're going to start the video from General Burkhardt, I think.
Bonjour à tous, mon général, cher Georges, merci de l'invitation à ce forum. Je salue tout d'abord les homologues moldaves et les anciens SCUTARU et SCUTARU. Je regrette bien évidemment de ne pas pouvoir être physiquement avec vous aujourd'hui. Donc merci de me donner l'opportunité de m'exprimer dans une courte vidéo. Globalement, l'environnement stratégique est plus compliqué avec des compétiteurs et adversaires déterminés qui n'hésitent pas à utiliser la force, mais également plus incertain, y compris au sein des alliances, ce qui n'est pas très confortable. Je suis convaincu que dans un monde compliqué, il faut agir avec des idées simples, se fixer des objectifs à viser et avoir un état final recherché clairement défini. Pour nous en Europe, pour assurer la sécurité de notre continent, j'identifie 2 impératifs. Tout d'abord, maintenir impérativement le lien avec les États-Unis. Même si, en fait, pour y arriver, il faut être 2, et donc tout n'est pas entièrement dans nos mains. Le deuxième impératif, c'est renforcer les capacités de défense européennes. Ça, c'est totalement de notre responsabilité, et donc il faut faire effort. Concrètement, les capacités de défense, ce sont bien évidemment des équipements et des munitions, mais aussi et surtout notre capacité à faire fonctionner l'Alliance, à faire fonctionner l'OTAN. Et je pense que c'est là que réside le défi le plus important. Les défis de l'environnement stratégique se retrouvent aussi ici, en mer Noire et dans les Balkans, d'où l'intérêt très important de ce forum. La France, comme d'autres, et vous êtes parmi ceux qui sont là, est consciente de ces enjeux et très investie dans ces 2 zones. Bien évidemment, en tant que nation cadre en Roumanie, avec le déploiement des forces de réassurance, mais également un point d'attention sur la nécessité de soutenir très fortement la Moldavie. Également dans les Balkans, où l'UE comme l'OTAN agissent, que ce soit dans le cadre de l'opération Altea ou via la CAFOR. Tout cela illustre bien que c'est collectivement que nous devons agir, tout en ayant conscience que la réponse n'est pas que militaire, mais aussi politique. Il faut toujours y veiller. Enfin, et pour conclure, je pense qu'il faut arrêter d'avoir peur, car dans le monde dans lequel nous vivons, ceux qui sont paralysés par la peur ne survivront pas. Il faut savoir prendre des risques mesurés, mais des risques quand même, car l'inaction coûte trop cher et entraîne l'échec. Il faut aussi avoir confiance dans nos valeurs, qui sont fortes et qui nous donnent un avantage décisif. Notre faiblesse, aujourd'hui, c'est probablement nous-mêmes, et il ne tient donc qu'à nous d'accepter d'être forts. Encore merci beaucoup pour l'invitation, et je suis sûr que les échanges dans le cadre de ce forum ont été très intéressants et très importants. Bonne journée à tous.
That was worth listening to, especially the part when he said, stop being afraid. Stop being afraid. I have to say, as an American, I am so tired of hearing people worry, what are we going to do if the Americans leave? Stop being afraid. The combined power, economic power, industry, and military of all of Europe, plus Canada, dwarfs Russia. So as we go through the next hour or so, talking about one front, one vision, and one strategy, please do not be afraid. Okay, so here's how this is going to work. And first of all, congratulations to all of you that you, on a Friday afternoon before the weekend, chose to stay here. So in this room are all the lion-hearted, true patriots, the defenders of the Black Sea in NATO's eastern flank. All the other losers went home early for the weekend. Okay, so we're going to make this worthwhile for you. The fact that the French embassy is hosting a magnificent reception after this, I'm sure has nothing to do with the reason that you chose to stay. Our format is designed to have some action, some interaction, and also to leave a lot of time for your questions. And so the way we're going to do this, and I'll start down at the end with General Breedlove, I've asked each of our three panelists to take 3 minutes to make their key points that they want to make, and then I will ask each of them, when they finish their 3 minutes, 2 or 3 questions to further develop what they said, or maybe even to challenge them. And then we'll work our way down the line, and we'll do that a couple of times, and then it'll be open. So there'll be plenty of time for everyone to ask. Now, I have this is the official timekeeper for the New Strategy Center Black Sea Conference here. So you're all on the clock. General Breedlove, I know for an Air Force officer, being right on time is extremely important. So go ahead, you're on the clock.
So when I first looked at this panel to plan for it, and I read the one front, one vision, one strategy, the first thought that came to my mind is a fairly important statement we've all heard. We either fight together or we die separately. And I think that this is important today. Yes, I think we need to get past the fear of America leaving. I personally don't think America will leave. We didn't in the first Trump administration, and I don't think we're going to leave in this one. So I believe that we'll have some interesting times, but that we'll all get through this. A quick story. When I first became the SACUR, I was reviewing plans and sort of trying to get a feel for where we were. And I found out that 3 of my nations didn't share plans with each other. And so they didn't totally share those plans even with the SACUR. Now remember, this was 12 years ago. Okay, but in my U.S. hat, at my U.S. headquarters, they all shared their plans with the U.S. commander. And when I looked at their plans and my staff looked at their plans, their 3 plans would have been a disaster for each other. So we either have to have one front, one vision, one strategy, which means understanding our plans, or we're in trouble. And the good news is the new regional approach to this planning, I think, in NATO is going to fix that. The second statement that you have heard many times is amateurs talk operation, professionals talk logistics. And what we saw in the beginning of this 3rd phase of the 11-year war that Russia has been carrying on against Ukraine, these last 3 years, the 3rd phase of that 11-year war, we saw the Russians have a disaster of monumental proportions in the Northwest, and they were defeated roundly, and one of the biggest problems they had was logistics. They went in prepared for a 3.5, 4, 5-day war, and they're still trying to close that 3.5, 4, 5-day war, and their logistics crushed them. So we have to be more focused on our own logistics. We've had great conversations in this very room about not only the kit, but the transportation nodes and how we need to improve those. My third and final point is we are going to come into an age of what I call ruthless prioritization. Everybody can't win every argument. We're going to have critically limited resources, and we need to put them against the right problem. In World War II, the U.S. Air Force, or the U.S. Army Air Corps, thought that the best way to use air power was give 2 or 3 to every unit. And it was horrible, the results of that. When we consolidated air power and we started ruthlessly prioritizing who would get that air power, we had success in the field. So that's my 3 opening remarks.
Sir, thank you. That was pretty close. So when you see one front, I mean, that's a pretty land-centric sort of term, but as Supreme Allied Commander, what does one front mean when we're talking about this region?
Well, let me agree with the first part of your statement. I was just having a wonderful conversation with a journalist a few minutes ago, and I said, we are at war. We don't talk about we are at war, but may I tell you, Putin is at war with us in the hybrid spaces, the gray zones, what he's doing in all of our capitals, what he is doing in all of our elections. Mr. Putin is at war with us. And until we accept the fact that, as Clausewitz said, the enemy gets a vote, the enemy has voted, he's at war with us. We're going to have to determine how we respond. So the first front, I think, is already engaged. And that front is in the hybrid and cyber spaces, and we need to step up to the task. The other part is, as many in this room absolutely understand, that in NATO there's sort of levels of interest in what's going on. And the closer you are to Russia, the more you understand the problem and are focused on the problem. And so I would say, in the beginning, NATO hated it when we military people talked about the Eastern Front, because that was too warlike. I think that's exactly what it is. Our Eastern Front now is holding the line. And that Eastern Front is not far from the ongoing war, oh, by the way.
Sir, one last question. When you were the Supreme Allied Commander, what were some of the authorities that you wanted or needed to address the situation you just talked about? Russian, destruction of infrastructure, disinformation, threat, violation of airspace. What are some authorities that the SACEUR needs to deal with that?
So the good news is we started in the Wales summit correcting some of those problems, bringing more forces into an immediate readiness that could be called upon by the SACEUR. And that includes naval forces, air forces, and land forces. The biggest problem we found out, and I point no fingers, but before Wales Summit, we didn't require nations to report how they decided their readiness. And when Russia invaded Crimea, one of those nations came to me with about 4 others, by the way, and they said, Mr. SACEUR, what are you going to do? And I asked him, how fast can you get your troops to your border? And he was not happy that he had to answer that question. I said, what is your readiness? And he had 2 units on 45-day readiness and a number of other units that were on 365-day readiness. There's some giggling in the audience. This is something we need to address. We need to look at our readiness, and good news is NATO now understands how every nation reports readiness. We have a better idea of actually how ready people are, and across the 3 summits, starting with Wales, we improve readiness. And one last pet peeve. And I still don't get a lot of good response from this, but it's my pet peeve. We have pilots flying under peacetime ROE in air policing ROE right now. Do you believe that we need our pilots to have peacetime ROE out there right now? I will tell you, as an airman and a former SACEUR, I don't think that's the right posture. We need our aviators who are sitting alert, facing Russia. They need to be on air defense rules of engagement, not a peacetime air policing.
Would you mind explaining to the infantry people in here what that means in infantry terms?
So air policing is designed to identify unidentified or uncooperating aircraft. In other words, to prevent another 9/11. Air policing is not designed as a wartime capability to stop an attack against our nations. An air policing pilot, if he's not from the airspace of the nation he's flying over, or she, I should be saying, if they are a Romanian and they're flying over Romania, this is not a problem. But if they are an American contributing to air policing over Romania, they have 0 authority to fire at an enemy aircraft unless the enemy aircraft first fires on them. So if a U.S. airplane flying over a NATO nation sees a Russian aircraft about to release a bomb under air policing ROE, they have no authority to shoot that airplane down. We need, I've been harping on this for 11 years now, we need to have our pilots flying under air defense ROE, not air policing.
Do
ROE.
all aircraft on the Black Sea air policing mission, are they armed?
They will be armed, yes, but they are, again, if it's a Romanian aircraft, they have sovereign authority in their airspace and they have different levels of ROE. But if it's another NATO nation contributing to Romania, they will be armed, but they will not have the rules of engagement, ROE, to allow them to engage a hostile act. And this is not just Romania, this is around the whole space. If a Romanian aircraft goes up and flies in Estonia or goes down and flies in Turkey to support that great NATO nation, they would not have the authority to take air defense actions should they see the need for it.
Thanks, sir. General MICOV from Moldova, I've heard Moldova mentioned more times over the last 2 years than I did in the last 22 years. I think people are increasingly alarmed about what might happen there should Russia be successful in Ukraine. So I look forward, we all look forward to hearing your thoughts on Moldova's role as part of this strategy and vision in front, even though not yet a member of the alliance.
Thank you for the question. So first of all, yes. First of all, I would like to mention that I'm the only chief of defense here that representing a nation that is non-member state, non-NATO, non-EU. And of course, we have concerns about what's happening in extended Black Sea. And pending your question, I would say that senior political leadership even 2 years ago and even prior to that have developed multiple scenarios upon how to properly react in case of crisis. Doesn't matter if it's going to be a conflict next to your borders or it's going to be another type of crisis. And of course, another issue was how to build the resilience, and I think during multiple panels of today, we have heard all those opinions, what the actually active measures been taken to convince our population that everything is under control and we can handle it, and what next steps should be done in case of something. And of course, that is why we decided all together to continue construction of the armed forces, to modernize national army and other services with the modern equipment, because we realized that the equipment that we had was obsolete. And now, together with our Romanian partners, with NATO partners, European Union, and other bilateral partnership, we do have some successes. And we gathering back the trust from our nation, from our people, and from our partners too. Another issue, of course, is related to interoperability, because the name of this panel itself looks to us already like a mechanism where one front is a formation for us as a military, one vision is where we are going, and strategy how to do it, in a sense to achieve it. But we as a small state, what is the role of our as a small state, and or Balkan states that are not active partners, and since they're not NATO members or EU members? What would be the solution for us to contribute as well to this wonderful mechanism that is presented or developed? I hope it answers your question. Thank you.
So I think one of the questions that many people have, certainly I do, when you think about the Russian presence in Transnistria, and especially that gigantic ammunition storage site that's there. Could you share a little bit about, I mean, what really is there? Is that something that would be an objective for Russian forces at some point? Or, I mean, what's the status of that ammunition site?
So there are actually two questions. So, but according to the first question,
you can answer both of them if you want to.
Yeah. Second is more sensitive, but the first one is related to the Russian illegal presence in the Republic of Moldova, especially on the eastern flanks. It's a modest but effective. So those forces are continuing their training, daily exercises, and all other events just to demonstrate their operational capabilities to the local population to gain their trust. So it presents a risk, a significant one. And of course, their official statement regarding participation in the national peacekeeping operations that we're running on the eastern border of the country, or safeguarding this depot, ammo depot, like you have mentioned, located in the northern part, it still represents a risk, but again, authorities are taking this into account and evaluating all the proper measures how to face these particular risks and to allocate proper resources to manage it. Thank you.
Fair enough. I was impressed with the election that Moldova conducted several months ago. And of course, the pressure on Moldovan civil society was enormous. The Russians, of course, wanted a different outcome, just like they wanted a different outcome here. How would you attribute, or to what would you attribute Moldova's ability to have an effective election despite all that pressure?
General, I think it's not a proper question to myself because I'm responsible for defense, but not for the policy making. And I
specialize in inappropriate questions. So, but tell me, I mean, as a Moldovan, why were you able to conduct an effective election?
Again, it's a very maybe proper question for another panel. And I think my political leaders that were presented today, they were answering on this pretty properly.
Okay, I'm sorry I missed their panel. What are your, let me try this a different way then. What are your expectations of your neighbors if Moldova was attacked in a more direct way?
It's an interesting question.
Of course it's an interesting question.
First of all, my neighbor is already attacked, one of those. Second of all, I really appreciate what actually Romania does for Moldova. And I'm not talking about multi-domain, not only about social or political sector, but talking about defense and its development. The number of events and activities increased so much that it's not only about like not having a language barrier or mentality barrier. Cooperation is great. Do we have a support? Of course, we do have a support in training activities and trying to achieve this level of interoperability and all other events, proper education and training of personnel and so on and so forth. Do we think about more critical events that might happen? Of course. But again, it's not the proper panel to discuss. But thank you for your question.
All right. I'm going to keep working, chipping away on this. All right. General VLAD. Sorry, you wanted to go here or you want to use?
No,
yeah?
It's okay.
Okay, great.
I will stay in the same line. Don't ask me about political issues.
Okay.
Okay, first of all, it's very important for us to have a strong commitment in our alliance. We strongly believe in NATO. We are very confident just together we could asset all the security issues. Also, our strategic partners with United States, it's count a lot for Romania's security, and we are trying to do anything to improve all the necessary conditions in Romania to provide host nation support for alliance forces that alliance decided after the war in Ukraine to be deployed here. Our strategic partnership with France, it's count a lot also. France as a primary nation decided to deploy here in this moment around 1,000 soldiers. In some exercises this year we will exercise, we will practice the scaling up to the brigade level of this battle group. Also, we are very thankful for Luxembourg, for Spain, for Belgium, when they decided to send their troops here in Romania. On the other hand, Romania established some multinational structures in my country, and here I am referring to Multinational Corps Southeast, Multinational Division Southeast, and Multinational Brigade Southeast. For the Multinational Brigade Southeast, North Macedonia, Poland, and Portugal decided to send some small contingents, but it means a lot for us. It's our front. We have to act together. On the other hand, Romania is part of the all 9 European Union mission. We have assumed command of the mission in Bosnia-Herzegovina, in Altea operation, also in Central Africa. We have sent there a detachment consist of 64 soldiers. We sent in the battle group where Spain is a framer nation, in Slovakia 1 anti-tank platoon, in Bulgaria where Italy is the framer nation for the battle group, we send the Recce platoon. As I mentioned, we have to stay together and to act together because this is the key for our success. We stood, as I mentioned, on the opening of this event. We stood for the first moment with Ukraine. We continue to support Ukraine because, in our opinion, the peace in the European Union, the peace in Europe will start with the peace and with the ceasefire in Ukraine. We are very confident that very soon we will find solution to close this wound, because it's a wound for entire Europe. Once again, just together we could manage, we could assess all the security issues.
I served with Romanian soldiers in Afghanistan and Zabul province, and I have watched Romania's women and men in uniform continue year after year after year to become more and more professional, more and more effective. And I'm not throwing bouquets. I mean, I saw it myself. So Romania is on exactly the right trajectory to continue and to provide effective armed forces. But of course, this is a destination that nobody ever reaches. It's a continuous effort. So what would you say are maybe 2 or 3 priorities for you if your new president was sitting here and if he said, General Vlad, what do you need? What would you tell him? This is not a political question. This is a...
You are right. First of all, in my opinion, Romanian Armed Forces is very, very professional. In the last 20 or 30 years, we had insufficient money for develop our capabilities. In the last 5 years, our government decided to allocate 2% of our GDP for Minister of Defense. From this 2%, we have decided to invest more than 30% just in endowment program for acquisition. We are in the posture to have a very ambitious procurement plan, and I am very confident in very short period of time we will have a strong capability here in the southeastern part of Europe, in the benefit of Romania as a security, but also in benefit of our alliance. I need time, first of all, to develop this capability and also to attend a final operational capability for the main units that we committed to assign to regional plan and for our permanent national defense plan.
Okay, so in the spirit of the French being our guest host nation for this, of course, Napoleon said, "You can ask me for anything except for time." So, of course, even your president cannot give you more time.
Money, legislation, and proper condition for my soldiers.
Excellent. Okay, I like that. Focus on the soldiers, because it doesn't matter how much new equipment you have if you don't have women and men that are prepared and ready to operate it. So I like your focus. Okay, I'm going to do one last run through here, and I want to ask a question of all three of you about air and missile defense. About, as you look at this one front, where would you prioritize, or, I mean, how would you even organize against a Russian attack on the scale of what the Ukrainians see every day and night? How can we in the alliance and also in Moldova, how do we do this, General BREEDLOVE?
Well, thanks. I actually answered this question in a previous panel, but I'll repeat it for in here. The fact of the matter is no one in the alliance is ready to face the kind of air attack that Russia fires into Ukraine every day. We have a good but very limited capability across the alliance to shoot strategic level targets. We have a very limited but very capable, but again, very limited capability to shoot against operational level targets. And we have an extremely limited capability to shoot against tactical level targets. So let me explain. I think that integrated air and missile defense is layered. It starts first with fixed-wing aircraft. You see Ukraine doing a good job of shooting down more strategic drones with their aircraft. It starts with a capability and pilots trained to engage at a missile, a cruise missile, or a ballistic missile at altitude. Then it takes a much more dense network of sensors so that the operational, say, THAAD or PAC-3 Patriot and the lower operational Patriots, they have to have a dense network of sensors in order to arrange the appropriate shooter to engage in that operational or mid-level area. We have some SAMTs and all these other really good capabilities, but they are extremely limited. So the first thing that makes them effective is more sensors, and then the second thing we would look for is more interceptors. And frankly, right now, the Ukrainians, probably #1 in the world at shooting down and engaging tactical drones, and right behind them is Russia. So the two combatants in this war are truly leading the war in the ability to engage tactical level drones. And the problem here is that a lot of nations want to buy one golden plated weapon to do all this work. It's never going to work. It's going to take jammers. It's going to take guidance interrupters. It's going to take plain old machine guns. It's going to take small heat-seeking missiles. And so developing that dense network of that low-altitude capability, none of our nations are ready to do that. Mine certainly isn't. And then we have to think outside the box. One of the most effective networks the Ukrainians are using now to detect these low-altitude drones is a network of cell phones, and the ability to kludge the data, the audio data from cell phones, to hear the incoming drones so that they can focus their fire. We need young soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines thinking outside the box to help us get over the hump to be able to learn how to engage these tactical level drones like Ukraine has learned. And frankly, I think it's important right now to go hug a Ukrainian and bring them here and let them teach us how they're doing it, because they're getting really good at it.
Sir, could you just briefly educate all of us on when you say strategic, operational, and tactical level in the context of air and missile defense?
Sure.
What are we talking about?
So at the operational level, the things that we have to be able to engage are ballistic missiles.
Strategic.
I'm sorry?
Is that strategic or operational?
That's strategic. Ballistic missiles and air-launched cruise missiles. I would call that the strategic level. In the strategic, but also dipping down to the operational level, are the short-range ballistic missiles, the cruise missiles, which are the hardest because their paths are far less predictable and therefore harder to engage. And then the upper level capabilities like the Shahed and others, those are more operational level and dipping into the tactical level. At the tactical level are the older Shaheds, a whole myriad of Shahed-like drones, and all of the quadcopters and smaller handheld and smaller wing drones. These are very short-ranged, man in the loop or woman in the loop, and you've heard them called first-person video drones. These are the toughest to find, but if you have the right kind of defense, fairly easy to engage. Did that answer?
Yeah, thanks, sir. General MICOV, how are you organized for air defense, and what are your expectations in Moldova?
So I will speak not only from Moldovan side, but from the partner nations as well. So for you to understand, who never visited Moldova, how big is it? So F-16 can fly it over from north to south in 2 minutes and 15 seconds, and east to west in less than 1 minute. So for you to understand the importance of air surveillance, air defense, and all other items. So that's why from the perspective of the small states and partner states, what is really important for us is information sharing, situational awareness, air defense and air surveillance exchanges with the big brothers and big partners who have all those wonderful toys that actually could share this information with us, because we are talking about protecting civilian lives. We do have a common understanding of the air picture with Ukrainians in case of drone attack, because even during 2024, we've got 13 cases, confirmed cases, of penetrating into our airspace. And of course, we realize it only now when we've got a war next door. Previously, we were never expecting to have a necessity or requirements to build a proper air defense because of such a good neighborhood from east and west. But now when we're realizing how expensive those systems are, we need to rely on our partners. We need to extend our partnership, especially concerning situational awareness in the Black Sea region. So that would be one of the solutions. Of course, we are not here to make some decisions, but some solutions to provide proper information to the small partner state in the Black Sea and Balkans region, so we would sleep better and be aware of potential risks and threat towards our national airspace. Thank you.
Excellent point about the information sharing. Are you authorized to shoot down, like, say, Russian drones or something that might be flying through Moldovan airspace?
As in every nation, in every country, according to our national legislation, we are not only authorized, we are must do. It's a must do, but it's again, it's cost effectiveness model. Nowadays, all of those so-called drones or UASs are so cheap, so you cannot launch a missile which costs €1 million on the item that costs $300. It's all about proportionality and the effects. And that's why information sharing becomes a priority when you see what is coming to you and what kind of effects you can put on these particular targets. Okay, thank you.
Fair enough. Sir, General Breedlove, you had a two-finger? I can wait until after the General. Okay, General Vlad, Romania, obviously, just a quick look at the map. Romania's strategic importance for the alliance on the Black Sea region, Port of Constanta, so important for the region. Seems to me that that will be an important target for the Russians should they make the terrible decision to attack a NATO country. And there, of course, would be other critical infrastructure in Romania that would be targeted. How do you solve this problem?
It's a very good question. In the last years, I have insisted to our parliament to change the law, the defense law, and also the law that are permitting us to control the airspace. And we succeeded last month. And in my opinion, today we have all the legal instruments to assess all the aerial threat in Romanian airspace. On the other hand, we have to continue all the procurement program to have an acquisition of MANPAD and SHORAD and VSHORAD systems. They are very, very important now. Through SAFE program, Security Action for Europe, our intention is to have a contract with European Joint Acquisition, and very soon to have all the necessary air defense capabilities for our units. Yes, Black Sea remain a very, very dangerous zone. We are trying together with our partners, because General BREEDLOVE have mentioned about the enhanced air policing missions. We are here with our partners. We are protecting the allied airspace. Also, we have contributed with detachment of XVIII for protecting the Lithuanian airspace. As I mentioned to the first part of my speech, I'm convinced just together we could manage all of these threats.
Okay, before General Breedlove's two-finger, this is your heads up to start thinking about the questions you want to ask our panel. General Vlad told me beforehand he was sure there was nobody in the audience that could ask him a question that he could not answer. So we'll find out if he's just overly confident or what will really happen. And if nobody raises their hand, then I will just start picking people anyway. So make sure you have something up in here. Sir, your two-finger.
So there's so many policymakers in this room. Most of the military people in this room have heard either me or someone like me make the following statement. But it's important for the policymakers, our civilian leadership of our military, to understand that in the integrated air and missile defense fight, it is far cheaper to kill the missile before it is fired than it is to shoot it once it's in the air. We like to use the analogy that it's better to kill the archer than to have to shoot the arrow. And so this is a big policy problem. But I would offer that if Russia begins a war with your nation and is firing into your nation, you should find the policy objectives to allow your military to kill the archers before they fire. Thank you.
All right, I love the kill the archer metaphor, but that is an important policy decision, and you want to know this beforehand not take several days of getting pummeled before you finally sort it out. Okay, I saw two hands went up immediately. First, Ian Brzezinski and then Edward Lucas. Please just introduce yourself to everybody and then ask your question. Yeah. You have microphones over here?
Thank you, General Hodges. I'm Ian Brzezinski. I'm a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. I want to build on your theme that Europe has capability more than it seems to even appreciate, and I want to tap into you and your panel who live and breathe European capability. So France and the UK have been leading an effort to develop a reassurance force or a peacekeeping force that could deploy to Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire, or even better, maybe to force a ceasefire. They seem to be zeroing in on a force of about 25,000 to 30,000. But many people say that's going to be a real stretch for the Europeans to be able to deploy and sustain. Do you agree with that pessimistic assessment? If not, how large a force do you think Europe could deploy in that mission to Ukraine?
Sir, you want to take, and then we'll work our way down here. So I'll ask all three of you to offer a comment on that.
So Ian, I think what I would accept from your concern is that the nations see that as a very expensive, very manpower intensive act. And I think that the pushback that you're hearing is based on that. But based on the readiness changes to the NATO military force, there should be plenty of force to do that. The math is pretty simple.
How large?
I don't think 25,000 is enough, but I'm wearing a beard now and not in charge, so I'll let the people who are smart enough take care of that. But 25,000 was below the first thing in the paper that I wrote for a group you're aware of.
General MICOV, any thoughts on what a force that would be required in Ukraine to compel Russia to comply with the ceasefire? What should we expect?
Of course, it's all about operational calculations. So it depends on multiple issues and planning process itself based on mission and tasks they're supposed to accomplish over there. And of course, I'm not in position right now to respond for all the European states. In our case for Moldova, we are specialized with some specific contributions or specific capabilities that actually will be needed not only in Ukraine but all over the world, such as demining capabilities. And of course, I assume that every nation will try to contribute with their own capabilities based on available force. But it's all about operational calculations. And it's not about us here in this room to calculate what would be the amount of the force. Thank you.
In my opinion, for a future coalition of the willing, we need three components. One will be for the land operation, and here I'm referring to the reassurance force, not a peacekeeping force. Secondly, we need a maritime task force for demining operation and also for maritime security. And the third will be air component for providing liberty of civilian flight over the Ukraine. Why? Because we have to work together for assure freedom of navigation, freedom of air circulation, because it will be very important for Ukraine, first of all, to assure all the economical needs, to be able to reconstruct their armed forces, and after that to reconstruct their nation. We could help them by training their forces. We could help them to demine Black Sea. Will be difficult talking just about the maritime coalition will be very difficult in the first part of this agreement to have effective fleet here because of the provision of Montreux Convention, and in this case, just riparian country will be able to assure the necessary capabilities. But our allies could provide us AOD divers, maritime patrolling aircraft, some surveillance equipment, and I am very confident not more than 10,000 soldiers in this coalition will be able to be and to act as a force to convince Russia to cease the fire. It's not about the peace, it's about the cease of fire and to create conditions in the next years to have peace in our region.
Ian, you asked me also, so I will, even as moderator, offer something. Nobody should talk about numbers until we get the mission. I mean, until you know the mission, how do you know how many troops you need? So that's the most important thing, is to clarify the mission. And once you can sort that out, then you can start saying, okay, well, obviously this will have to be a joint force. It will have to have real capabilities. But you have to have a clear chain of command. This can't be everybody calling back to their national capital to ask, can I shoot or whatever. And it has to be credible. The Russians have to know that if they launch a drone or take a shot at somebody in Ukraine, that there will be immediate consequences. So that means the rules of engagement have to authorize Captain VLAD, not General VLAD, Captain VLAD, to make a decision on the spot that he can immediately shoot back. That's the hard part. The political part is getting the mission straight and the rules of engagement. Then all of our militaries can build the force that'll be required. It's hard to imagine this being effective if it's less than 40, 50,000 people, though. Otherwise, you won't be able to cover enough territory to do this. Okay, Edward, and then Hans, and then I'm looking way.
Yeah, hello, Edward Lucas from SEPA and the Times. My question's about stockpiles. Politicians hate stockpiles, they prefer platforms. We've seen our stockpiles were too low anyway before the war, and they've got even lower now because we've been giving stuff to Ukraine. So people say that NATO is great for the first 2 or 3 days of the war, and after that, it's fixed bayonets unless the Americans are willing to help us. So I'd like to ask all three of you, General BREEDLOVE, since you've left, how much improvement has there been? For the other two, Chods, what level of stockpiles do you need? What have you got? What do we need to do to get the stockpiles up to the proper state? Do we need joint stockpiles, and should we finance them differently? Maybe not out of national governments, but collectively. Ideas, please.
So I think this is a good news, bad news story. The good news is, as we say in the deep south in America, we got religion. We're on this now. People are focused on this. A recent connection of Rheinmetall and Lockheed Martin and other things, we're starting to see nations truly get after creating the capacities and the depth of the magazine that you're talking about. That's the good news. We're off to a good start. The bad news is we got a long way to go. And we talk a lot about 155s. I sure hope that in the future we don't ever allow NATO to get stuck in an artillery attrition style warfare. So what I'm more worried about is what is the stockpile of our ability to kill at range precisely. We want to kill the Russians in Russia, not when they come in our countries. We want to start attriting them before they get to the border. And so we don't want to get here and set up trenches and have artillery exchanges. We want to kill them in depth and in detail and precisely. And so that's the stockpiles I'm most worried about.
Very nicely said, by the way. So I will continue that idea mostly, again, from partners' perspective, because we still have cases when there is no standardization. We still, if we're going to shoot different type of rifles, different calibers, different methodology, no interoperability, and so on and so forth. So it's part of the first part of our session, which is called One Front. But as a strategy, as long as we have, all of us, fragmented strategies, how to solve this issue, because joint procurement, joint stockpiles will solve the problem, but not now, maybe in the future. And again, no one wants to be here individualistic, but again, from the perspective of big organizations like European Union, like NATO, it's perfectly fine. For us as a small nation, and it's all about standardization and interoperability. To have similar ways of doing things, similar weapon systems, and so on and so forth. That is why it's critical to have some stockpiles necessary for immediate terms, but modernization efforts should be accomplished as soon as possible if it's put in front of US and strategic objective. Thank you.
We have some instruments called Capability Target 2005 to 25, burden sharing, common acquisition. But first of all, we have to scale up and to develop our defense industry. I have mentioned about the SAFE program. I also have to continue with the Readiness 2030 European Union program. Very soon we will have to start the joint acquisitions, and I'm very confident we will have interoperability in all of our armed forces. The standards are fixed up now. We have just to develop capability in according with Capability Target 25.
But what are the obstacles to increasing? I mean, obviously there's money involved, but except for money, or in addition to money, why don't we have? Why can't we produce more ammunition faster? General BREEDLOVE, from an American standpoint, I mean, is there some other thing that keeps us from ramping up more quickly?
Policy and law. You know the acquisition laws. Because some bad people did some bad things in the past and took money out of contracts and built capabilities that were not really asked for, our lawmakers came in and did what they needed to do, and they wrote laws that absolutely limited our producing capabilities to exactly what we ordered. In other words, if we order 1,000 rounds and a country uses a little, a company uses a little bit of that money to build another production line, they're going to get punished under our current laws. We have laws now that discourage surge capability. And we have to develop in our nations, and certainly in my nation, we have to re-look at the laws to allow our producing companies to be able to capitalize themselves so that they can have excess capacity. An example, one of the missiles shot thousands of times in the opening part of the third part of this war in Ukraine. We went to that company and said, we need you to double production. And remember, our laws have limited them to building what we're paying for. They said, outstanding first deliveries in second quarter 28. Because the first thing they have to do is build another line. Mm-hmm. And so we need to figure out how to incentivize our defense industries to be able to have surge capacity. Right now, we don't allow them to do that.
Right, thanks. Hans Dahmen, sir.
Thank you very much. And sorry, Ben, I have to come back to the question of the peace forces in Ukraine. First, a logistic remark, which you might respect from me, and then a strategic one afterwards. If you project the area of Ukraine on Europe, it stretches from Spain to Ukraine. we are at this moment barely able to sustain our own forces at the eastern border of the NATO treaty area. How are we going to sustain a 50,000 troop peace force in Ukraine? In a terrain that's really difficult. And then that's the other part. Do we really want to make 50,000 soldiers a target for the Russians in Ukraine? If we can achieve the same goal we want to have, namely that Russia stops fighting there by using the whole force of the alliance in a different way. And my very unpolitical solution would be, if Russia breaks the treaty, we will attack. And in line with General BREEDLOVE's remark about shooting the archer, if you attack Ukraine once again, we will attack Kaliningrad, and we'll mess it up so far and so much that even the Germans and the Poles won't want it back. And yeah, Phil, I totally understand the political implications of this, but the political implications of sending troops to another Balkan, another Bosnia-Herzegovina, another Afghanistan, another Iraq, is that smarter than looking at other solutions? There is a question there. I'm not sure. I'm not asking you to agree. But should we also look at other solutions than a peace force that we put over there?
I would not call it a peacekeeping force, for starters. I mean, something like the NATO I-4 that went into Bosnia in '95 is, to me, a better model. It's not a peacekeeping force. But did you have a question, or was that just another great Hans Dahmen soliloquy?
Ian started calling it peace force, but no. The question is there another solution than only that thing we tried a couple of times over the last 30 years and didn't work out?
So what I would love to agree with is you are looking at options to do one thing, and that is if Mr. Putin breaks the agreement or whatever, we have to increase the pain on Mr. Putin. Right now, he is not receiving the kind of pain that is changing his mind. He's going to keep trying to do this attritional-based warfare until we all give up. And so I don't think that we have the right solution yet. So I think your question is a good one. We should continue to look at other options, but what is important is what Ben said, and that is that given the mission that is defined by the West, the coalition of the willing, we have to put the right tools on the ground somewhere so that Mr. Putin understands. Remember the old thing that they attribute to Lenin. Lenin, I think, said, when you approach your enemy, you fix your bayonet and press your bayonet into his belly. And if it is soft, keep pushing. If it is hard, pull back and rethink. So far, we have been soft. And so he's continuing to push. And I think finding either the force or a highly enabled standoff force, all of these are a good discussion. But the clear thing is, as Ben said, give them a mission. And Mr. Putin has to understand they're going to execute that mission if he breaks the truth. I think that's the big deal.
Thanks, sir. Bobo. And then General Hormuz.
Yep. So I'm Bobo Lowe. I'm an independent international relations analyst. My question is for General Breedlove and also you, General Hodges. It's become increasingly fashionable in recent times to talk about the Euro-Atlantic and Indo-Pacific theaters as being really one overarching theater. So I'm intrigued to hear how you see this idea of one front, one vision, one strategy play out vis-a-vis China and indeed the Indo-Pacific. Thank you.
I actually think that the question written for the panel was just considering Europe and not China. But may I just, a small contribution. and some people don't agree with me, so if you're going to throw tomatoes, be inaccurate and hit Ben. I am an optimist when it comes to the European armies producing enough land force to dissuade Mr. Putin. Where I am not an optimist is that we have the appropriate naval forces, air forces, and what I call high-end enablers to dissuade Mr. Putin. And that's where the rub with China comes. I apologize to General Scaparrotti earlier because I said something that he actually agreed with, and that is China is not going to be an army-intensive fight. It's going to be an air and navy intensive fight. And so we have zero need nor requirement to remove force from Europe to be concerned about the Pacific. We need our land forces to be concerned about Europe because that's what Mr. Putin uses. But I must tell you that we all have got a lot of work to do to develop our air and naval capabilities. And I said it the other day, and I was challenged immediately afterwards, you know, that there are a lot of ships in NATO, but we're unable to sortie a lot of them at the same time. And we need to do more in the air. And I'm not trying to sell any kit, but stealth is penetrating the S-300s and the S-400s in Syria and other places in this world. And we're going to be hard-pressed to penetrate with older fourth-generation aircraft. We've got work to do.
But I would just say that Russia, North Korea, Iran, China, these are all problem sets that are related. And if we were thinking strategically, we would approach them as parts of a greater whole, in my view. And if we adopt a strategy of Russia first, much the way the Allies adopted the strategy of Germany first in 1941-42, help Ukraine defeat Russia, that would lead to the isolation of Iran because Iran has no other friends on the planet, and that would help ease the pressure in that region. And then China would see that the West really does have the political will and the capability to do what needs to be done. So it would have a very strong deterrent effect on China, in my view. What we're doing now has the opposite effect. They see a U.S. administration that apparently is kind of flexible about this sovereignty thing, and so I think that emboldens the Chinese. So they are all one kind of front in the broadest sense of the word. And of course, former Commander U.S. European Command would be working on a day-to-day, was working on a day-to-day basis with U.S. Central Command, U.S. Africa Command. All of these, they're sharing resources, they're sharing intelligence. It's all parts of a bigger whole. So I don't see these as separate and distinct problems or theaters. Okay, next was General Hormuz, and then my friend from the Bundeswehr.
Thank you very much, man. So China was mentioned here. So can we learn from Indo-Pacific? Is it possible to have kind of a replicator program for the Black Sea? No one is saying that we have to forget about traditional platforms, but we know the problems we have. We need to fill the gap. And maybe it's time to have a NATO standing maritime force in the Black Sea consisting entirely of drones, air, naval and submarine drones, being in line with the Montreal Convention. Is it possible to practice escalation management in the Black Sea? Can we do it? Because otherwise, Putin will not pay attention. Thanks.
So is it, Paul, you're talking about a standing maritime drone force, is that right? You would probably be one of the biggest contributors to such a force, General Vlad. Is that feasible?
Without changing the provision of Montreal Convention will be very, very difficult. I'm not sure that we will have the sufficient political cohesion to do this. But I suppose we have solutions. Some allies, some partners could donate for Romania, Bulgaria, even to Turkey, some naval assets to put our flag and to have a real action for maritime security, because this is the big challenge. For the first part of the war, Russia used to notify a lot of restricted zone. I am convinced after the war they will have a similar behavior. In our territorial waters, what was happened in Bulgarian territorial waters in 2022, in our economic exclusive zone, and we have to take measures to protect our economic investment. And once again, I will give to you the example of Neptune Deep project. We could develop a drone task force in Black Sea, but we have to complete with a real maritime fleet to push Russia back.
How would our Turkish ally view such an organization, a standing maritime unmanned system presence made up of riparian states?
I suppose we could discuss with Turkey, with Bulgaria, even with Georgia, even if Georgian fleet are belonging to Minister of Interior, not to Minister of Defense. We could discuss, and we have to find solution together, just together, because, as I mentioned, now is not possible because of political reasons. But Turkey have to be a good ally, have to be with us to assess all the threat, because on the other hand, it's a threat for them.
Okay, thanks, sir. So, my friend from the Bundeswehr.
My name is Lieutenant Colonel Sebastian Erbe. I'm the German Defense Attaché here in Bucharest. I have a general question about manning. All across Europe, we have different systems of getting young people into the armed forces and different systems when it comes to retirement. The Republic of Moldova still has conscription. Romania has suspended it, like Germany too. If you would have to give a military advice to your political leaders, what would be your favorite system, and would your system you have right now is a sufficient one for you or not? Thank you.
The solution is to increase the salary of the soldiers. Last year, Romania increased salary with 30%, and the rotation was very, very good. We succeeded to hire 8,000 soldiers. I want to continue this program this year, but I have to look to my budget, because we have to discuss also about this topic. We have to keep the balance between the money that we have for salary and for pension, because in case of Romania we have to pay our pension for the retirement personnel from our budget. Also, we have to look to the procurement aspect of the budget, and also to maintenance and operating one. In our case, 55% of our budget are going to the pension and salary, and it's not good. We have, on the other hand, to strengthen our reserve forces, because, as you mentioned, we decided not to have conscription since 2007, and nowadays our reserve forces are around 48, 49 years old. They are very, very old. We have to change our law to prepare our population to have a resilient society, and we are working for changing this law.
I have to say, when you just said somebody that is 48 is very old, that hurt me deeply. That hurt me deeply. I can't even remember being 48. General MICOV.
We tried multiple systems, actually, how to recruit, retain, and further to develop the force. So there is no perfect formula for success. But in our case, because we are a very modest military, we do keep the conscription. But there are some conditions why we do keep them, in a sense of education of young generation and refreshing the active reserve component. What would be the benefits of it in the future? Because we would like to reduce the terms of being in active duty for conscripts. Instead of having 12 months to reduce to 9 and further to 4. So by that we would increase the interest of youngsters to join the military and then further on to professionalize as professional soldiers. But it's a very good solution for us to refresh the reserve. It's a good solution for us to increase the reputation of the military by the trust we are still in the second place in our society after the church. And it's all based on a societal approach, how to build up this joint force and combining professional soldiering and conscripts. But again, it's case by case. There is not an exact formula. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, I think this is a time to wrap this up. First, don't leave, because I'm going to hand it over to George, and we have our closing remarks from the ambassador of France to Romania. But I would like to, give you guys a chance to go find a chair. Congratulations and thank you for excellent panel and insights.
Good evening. Thank you very much to all of you. First of all, I want to invite His Excellency Nicolas WARNERY, because the French is county partner of this edition. Nicolas, please.
Thank you, George. I will be very short because we had many speeches. Thank you very much for having us as your partner for this 9th edition. We've been very, very happy, very honored, very stimulated by this 9th edition. Congratulations for having the President-elect the first morning and to make us able to hear directly from him his very first statement regarding these very important issues. It was really moving for us who lived these last weeks with some emotions. We've had very interesting panels. I realized that many speakers mentioned uncertainty, doubt, lack of confidence. And I would like to say that a factor of hope maybe was that among European countries there was some kind of unity, solidarity, and I'm sure that we can try to develop these kind of reactions, and in the perspective of a NATO summit, to have a real good NATO summit, not a minimalist one, but a really political summit, a strong one with courageous decisions if possible, because I think we all need them. Here in Europe, in NATO countries, in Moldova, of course, in Ukraine. So let's hope that we will have in the next weeks real decisions and again courageous one. I think I will stop here and just say all of you, see you for the 10th edition here next year. Thank you, George. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Nicolas. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to all of you for your presence, your contributions. We had 200 speakers, 49 panels during these 2 days. Thank you very much to Ministry of Defense, our partner, and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to our academic partner, University of Agronomy, volunteers, technical personnel, and translators, and especially remarks to our dedicated team of New Strategy Center. They work a lot during the last month to organize this event. Please applaud them. Thank you, Nicolas, for your kind support and your great team. Merci beaucoup. Indeed, it's very important to have France as the country partner. It's the first time when New Strategy Center invited a country to be a partner of the current edition. And we express our gratitude to France because France plays an important role leading the NATO battle group in Romania. And also I want to express my deeply gratitude to my dear, very good friends from Ukraine. Because to come to Bucharest is not so easy, I know very well. And thank you very much for your effort to be in Bucharest, to explain the real situation on the battlefield, how Ukraine resists. And thank you very much. We work to have a direct train line between Kiev and Bucharest, and I'm pretty sure the next edition will be easier to come to Bucharest. And also because we discuss a lot about the war in Ukraine, about transatlantic relations, and about peace. Yes, all of us, we want peace. But it's important to understand one kind of peace. Peace doesn't mean capitulation of Ukraine. We don't want to have a new Munich agreement. We don't want to have just a deal. A simple deal, a ceasefire, without any security guarantees, because otherwise this war will restart. Because this war has started in 2014, not in 2022. And I want to answer General MICOV to questions arised by my dear friend Ben. Dear friends, dear brothers from Republic of Moldova, we are not alone. And if something can happen, please be sure all us, all Romanians, will be together with you. But our duty is to avoid this kind of scenario, and for this it's necessary to support Ukraine. Otherwise, if Ukraine will capitulate, indeed, the worst case scenario and the nightmare will be part of reality, because Romania could have the border with Russian Federations on the Danube. And because, of course, at the end of each kind of event, all of us, usually, we applaud. I want to applaud especially two persons, because they represent symbols of this current life. Two persons from different countries, but they have a common objective. And they are fighting hard with the same dictators, with the same autocratic regime. And I want to applaud two persons, Yulia Paevska, Ukrainian paramedic, who fought in Mariupol, was tortured by Russians, occupants, and also to applaud Vladimir Kara-Murza, the leader of Russian opposition. Both of them are fighting with the same autocratic regime, and they are fighting for liberty. And I hope to see a free and independent Ukraine in all territories occupied by Russians. And if I have a wish, I wish to meet Vladimir Kara-Murza as soon as possible again in Moscow. Thank you very much to all of you. And I invite to the 10th edition of the Black Sea and Balkan Security Forum next May 21st, 22nd. Thank you very much to all of you. All the best. And for dear my Ukrainian friends, za перемогу. All the best.